January 13th, 1490, half past midnight. In the Sala Verde of the Castello Sforzesco, the planets begin to move. 7 mechanical spheres spin in a gilded dome as oil lamps glitter like stars. Actors dressed as gods descend from the heavens on invisible wires. The man who built all of this is not a stage designer. He is a painter. His name is Leonardo da Vinci. The Festa del Paradiso, the Feast of Paradise. It celebrates the wedding of Gian Galeazzo Sforza and Isabella of Aragon. The bride is a princess of Naples. The groom is the rightful Duke of Milan, though his uncle Ludovico controls the real power. The feast is so legendary that 25 years later, Leonardo will recreate it for the King of France. The ambassador from Ferrara will write that he witnessed what looked like paradise itself. Leonardo arrived in Milan in 1482. He introduced himself to Ludovico Sforza with a letter listing his talents: military engineer, architect, sculptor, inventor. Almost as an afterthought, he mentioned painting. And in that same letter, a curious claim: "I make cakes that are without compare." Ludovico hired him first as a lute player, then as a stage designer, then as something no one had a name for yet. Leonardo became the master of feasts and banquets. His notebooks, preserved for 5 centuries, contain not just paintings and flying machines. They contain recipes, kitchen inventions, rules for table manners, designs for pepper mills, egg slicers, garlic presses. He even designed a mechanical spit that turned itself using the heat of the fire. The Castello Sforzesco, one of the largest citadels in Europe, rebuilt from a Visconti fortress in 1450, it is now the political and cultural heart of Milan. Ludovico, called Il Moro, the Moor, presides over a court of poets, philosophers, mathematicians, and astrologers. And Leonardo, who is somehow all of these at once. The menu for a Sforza feast runs to hundreds of dishes across 3 services. Elderberry fritters made with ground almonds sieved through rosewater, pea soup, fried oysters, meat pies with elaborate crusts, and mythological animals sculpted entirely from sugar paste. But the centerpiece is always the same: a roasted peacock, served in its own feathers, made to look as if still alive. The peacock is the triumph of Renaissance cooking. Maestro Martino of Como, the greatest chef of the age, describes the technique. The bird is carefully skinned, roasted, then redressed in its own plumage. A piece of camphor soaked in wine is placed in its beak and lit, so the peacock appears to breathe fire. The effect is so spectacular that peacocks will remain the ultimate display of wealth until they are replaced by turkeys from the New World. The courses seem endless. Tagliatelle, ravioli filled with chicken, spinach, ricotta, and parmigiano reggiano. Chickpea soups, fava bean stews, wild boar, venison, pheasants gilded with actual gold leaf, gelatins molded into the shape of the Sforza crest. Some courses contain 100 dishes each. A grand feast might serve 1,000 dishes in total, though not everyone receives the same food. The finest meats go to the nobles nearest the host. The most dramatic moment belongs to the trinciante, the meat carver. He is not a servant, but a nobleman himself, trained in swordsmanship. He carves the meat in aria, in the air, slicing it so precisely that the pieces fall perfectly onto the plate below. Vincenzo Cervio, the most famous trinciante, wrote an entire book on the art. To watch him work was entertainment itself. Leonardo, meanwhile, was reinventing the kitchen. His notebooks describe machines to pluck ducks, cut pigs into cubes, knead bread, grind meat. He designed a conveyor belt to move dishes from kitchen to table, a sprinkler system in case of fire. One banquet, the sprinklers malfunctioned. The conveyor belt sped up, the guests left hungry and soaking wet. Even geniuses have bad days. And then there is the napkin. Before Leonardo, guests wiped their greasy hands on the tablecloth, or, according to one account, on live rabbits tied to their chairs. Leonardo found this barbaric. He placed small cloths beside each diner. Look at the Last Supper, painted in these very years. Before each apostle, a napkin. It may be the first appearance of the modern napkin in art. Leonardo wrote extensively about table manners. He should not place his head upon his plate to eat. He should not wipe his knife upon his neighbor's clothing. He should not set loose birds upon the table, not snakes nor beetles. And most importantly, if he is to vomit, then he leaves the table. For the Sforza wedding, Leonardo selected the cheese himself. Montebor, an ancient cheese from Piedmont, shaped like a tiered wedding cake. Raw cow and sheep's milk, still made today in the same valley. Leonardo chose it as the only cheese on the menu. 5 centuries later, it remains a symbol of the Renaissance table. Curiously, Leonardo himself ate simply. His shopping lists and notes suggest vegetarianism: green salads, vegetables, bread, mushrooms, grains, pasta. His personal favorite was chickpea soup, served hot. A man who orchestrated peacocks breathing fire preferred bread with soft cheese, fresh butter, and figs. Between courses, the entertainment was constant. At the Festa del Paradiso, Leonardo arranged for tumblers and fire eaters to parade across the table. Servants flew on wires dressed as birds. Others wore costumes of wild beasts. At midnight, a 20-foot waterfall poured from the ceiling. An elephant vanished into thin air. The planets spun. The gods descended. In 1498, Leonardo painted the Sala delle Asse, a room in the castle transformed into a forest. 16 mulberry trees painted along the walls, their branches weaving across the ceiling in a canopy of golden knots. The mulberry was called Moro in Lombard dialect, a tribute to Il Moro himself. Dining in this room, you were dining beneath an endless grove. The spices came from the east: saffron, ginger, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg. Sugar, treated not as sweetener but as a spice, used lavishly by those who could afford it. Leonardo noted recipes using turmeric, poppy seeds, and aloe. Sweet and savory were not yet separated. Meat came with sugar. Desserts came with pepper. Diners used 2-pronged forks and drank from crystal glasses made in Murano. Wine pairing first appeared in the 16th century, matching wines to courses. Between 1495 and 1498, Leonardo painted The Last Supper. In the refectory of Santa Maria delle Grazie, commissioned by Ludovico Sforza, the prior's nephew wrote, "Sometimes he would wield the paintbrush from dawn until dusk, painting incessantly and forgetting to eat or drink." In 1499, the French invaded. Ludovico fled. The clay model for Leonardo's bronze horse was used for target practice by French soldiers. The Sala delle Asse was whitewashed. The court that had created paradise scattered to the winds. But the notebooks survived, the recipes, the rules, and somewhere in a refectory, Christ and his apostles still sit at table, each with a small cloth folded beside his plate.